There is a number that came out of CATL's Yichong production facility in 2023 that the battery industry has been quietly stress testing ever since. $39 per kilowatt hour. That is the certified manufacturing cost for sodium-ion cells rolling off a commercial production line. Let me tell you what that actually means. Lithium-iron-phosphate, the cheapest lithium chemistry in mass production, sits around $80 per kilowatt hour. Sodium, just cut that in half. You heard that right. And here is the part that blows most people's minds. That cost figure is not the story. The story is the 3-0-year-old material ceiling that had to be demolished to get there, and what that demolition means for every electric vehicle, every grid storage project, and every mining operation on Earth. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how they broke it. In 2021, CATL stood in front of the global battery industry and announced it was going back to sodium. The room, figuratively speaking, did not applaud. It calculated. And what most analysts calculated was that sodium ion had already been given a fair trial, had already failed that trial on the numbers that mattered, and that revisiting it was an exercise in wishful thinking dressed up as engineering ambition. To understand why, you have to go back further than 2021. You have to go back to the 1980s, when sodium ion and lithium ion were genuinely competing chemistries, two parallel bets on how to store electrical energy in a rechargeable cell. Both use the same basic principle, ions moving back and forth between two electrodes through a liquid electrolyte. The difference was the ion doing the moving, and that difference turned out to matter enormously. Lithium ions are small, sodium ions are not. A sodium ion carries a radius roughly 34% larger than a lithium ion. And in battery chemistry, size is not a minor detail. It determines how easily an ion can squeeze into the crystal lattice of the electrode material, a process called intercalation. Picture a standard door frame. Lithium ions walk through it without touching the sides. Sodium ions have to turn sideways. And at the speed and volume that a rechargeable battery demands, turning sideways means the frame starts to crack. That cracking the mechanical stress on electrode materials caused by sodium's larger size translated directly into the number that ended sodium's first era. Energy density, the amount of energy you can store per kilogram of battery. By the early 1990s, lithium-ion cells were demonstrating above 200 watt-hours per kilogram in laboratory conditions. Sodium-ion cells were stuck below 150 watt-hours per kilogram. The gap was not marginal. It was the difference between a technology that could power a laptop or an electric vehicle and one that could not. Here is the detail that most histories of battery development leave out entirely. The industry did not abandon sodium because sodium was chemically flawed. It abandoned sodium because lithium was better. And once the investment followed lithium, the gap widened every year. Argonne National Laboratory, the European Battery Alliance, and the major Japanese battery consortia all directed their materials research budgets toward lithium chemistries through the 1990s and 2000s. 30 years of compounding improvement, hundreds of billions of dollars in supply chain infrastructure. Lithium-ion did not just win the 1990s. It built a wall around itself. One patent portfolio and one gigafactory at a time. By 2021, that wall looked permanent. And that is exactly what made the announcement that came next so easy to dismiss. In July of 2021, CATL published the specifications for its first generation sodium-ion cell and announced it would reach commercial production within 2 years. Stated energy density, 160 watt-hours per kilogram. Stated goal, close the gap with lithium iron phosphate far enough to make sodium viable for entry-level electric vehicles and grid storage applications. The reaction from the analyst community was swift, specific, and almost uniformly skeptical. Bloomberg flagged the energy density shortfall immediately. At 160 watt-hours per kilogram, CATL's first-generation cell sat roughly 20% below the commercial LFP benchmark. That gap, the analyst noted, translated directly into vehicle range, and range was the single metric that determined whether a consumer bought an electric vehicle or walked back to the gasoline forecourt. Panasonic's battery division quietly noted that their own sodium research, shelved in 2004, had hit similar numbers before they concluded the intercalation problem could not be solved at an acceptable cost. Institutional consensus settled somewhere between polite interest and confident dismissal. The specific technical objection was cycling stability. Sodium-ion cells had a known failure mode, capacity fade. After repeated charge and discharge cycles, the electrode materials degraded faster than their lithium counterparts. Early sodium cells were losing measurable capacity within 500 cycles. A consumer vehicle battery needs to hold above 80% capacity for at least 1,500 cycles to be commercially warranted. The gap was not a rounding error. They said the same thing about lithium-iron-phosphate in 2005. We all know how that ended. LFP chemistry was formally dismissed by the majority of the Western battery industry on almost identical grounds: lower energy density than the premium lithium chemistries, questionable long-term cycling, and a cost structure that looked attractive on paper but had not been proven at gigafactory scale. By 2024, LFP accounted for more than 40% of all EV battery shipments globally. The dismissal was not wrong about the first-generation cell. It was wrong about what the program was actually for. What CATL was running between 2021 and 2023 was not a commercialization push. It was a materials research program with a commercial deadline. The first-generation cell was a public proof of direction, not a finished product. The actual work was happening at the cathode and the anode simultaneously. Two separate materials problems that had defeated every prior sodium-ion program, and CATL had decided to attack both of them at once. You know what that attack looked like? That is where the story really begins. Okay, the cathode is where sodium-ion chemistry had always broken down first. Not because sodium could not store energy in a cathode material. It could. The problem was what happened to the cathode material after the 500th time sodium ions pushed their way in and out. The crystal lattice structures of conventional sodium cathode materials, layered metal oxides, primarily would begin to deform under the mechanical stress of repeated cycling. Ions moving in and out of a rigid crystal structure at volume is not a gentle process. It is closer to hammering a nail into the same hole several thousand times and expecting the wood grain to hold. The material CL identified as the solution was not new. Prussian white, chemically an iron hexacyanoferrate framework, had been studied as a sodium cathode candidate since the 1980s. Researchers knew it had structural properties that made it theoretically well suited to sodium-ion cycling. Its framework is open and built around channels wide enough to accommodate sodium's larger ion without the same mechanical stress that destroyed layered oxide cathodes. Those channels do not just tolerate sodium ions moving through them, they are shaped for it. The problem was water. Prussian white, synthesized under standard laboratory conditions, absorbed water molecules into its crystal structure during formation, a contamination the industry called crystal water. At concentrations above roughly 2% by weight,